Day 17 of the Karen Read trial is over. It was a very short day for the jury. Hi, my name is Sydney Rushing. I'm a criminal defense attorney in the state of Michigan. Now let's talk about it. Morning started out with none other than a sidebar. Then Judge Cannoni brought the jury in, and she wanted to remind them how important it was to not react or visibly react to the things that they were seeing during this trial. And Brennan played a video for Karen's interviews, and she basically said how she had pulled a piece of glass out of John's nose and it started gushing blood. I still do not understand how she ever thought that this was a good idea. Then the Commonwealth called witness number 31, Andre Porto, to the stand. He's a forensic scientist with the Massachusetts State Police, and with Lally doing the direct, we already know what we started off with, all the background information. He took a DNA swab from Karen's taillight, and it came back with 3 contributors, one of which is highly likely to be John. He tested the hair, but found it had no human DNA. He tested the broken glass, which also had 3 contributors, one of which was highly likely to be John. Same thing goes for John's pants, but the sneakers and the long sleeve shirt had too many contributors, so he wasn't able to compare those. On cross-examination, Yannetti focused on who are these other contributors that you said there are. And Porto essentially said that he can't say who because it could be anybody. He said he was not asked to compare it to Kevin Albert, the police chief, Brian Albert, or Brian Higgins. He agreed that he cannot determine when those DNA markers were placed on those items. When he was asked if he sent his report to Michael Proctor, there was an objection and Judge Cannoni sustained it. There was a very brief redirect, and then we moved on. Then the witness number 32, Ash Villier. She's also a forensic scientist with the Massachusetts State Police, and she's a new witness. Ali started out by getting all of her background information. Now what she did in this case is she did physical match analysis, which is exactly what it sounds like. There are some photos shown of the evidence that she received. She explained how she gets evidence and how she kind of notes everything, size, shape, color, material, all of that. And she takes basically the pieces she has to see if she can make a total piece, right? Physical match analysis. Then there was a break given for the jury because Cannoni wanted to hear some more arguments based on the stuff that came up yesterday afternoon. I think the defense has a valid argument because this report didn't come out until after Whiffen testified. So they're very worried about a sequestration order being broke. And I think that, that's a valid argument. Valier then comes back on the stand and Lally continues his direct. She showed how several smaller pieces came together and made a larger piece. And that in John's clothes, there was a mix of dirt and plastic. And she clarified that she only saw the debris. She did not actually see the clothing. On cross, Yannetti had her point out that the DNA testing had been done prior to her receiving the items and that she was not aware that there were 3 contributors. She said that the taillight had a missing spot, and Yannetti asked her if she was provided any pieces from One Meadows, and she said no. Prosecution then objected, and Judge Cannoni sustained it when she was asked if she was aware there was a collision at John's house. And again, she confirmed that she didn't see any clothing, that she only analyzed the debris. She's confident in their chain of custody procedures and that they keep their evidence that comes in from the lab and from the police separate. She testified that Proctor is the one who submitted the clothing evidence and that she can't say what happened to the clothes prior to them being brought in. She was excused, and the jury was probably happy to have a half day today after the craziness of yesterday and the kind of the mental toll that yesterday probably took on them after seeing those photos. And it's beautiful weather outside. And then Judge Cannoni made her ruling on the discovery issues. She said that she did not find ample proof that the report was delayed and that she will not hold a voir dire session like she did with the ARCA experts. But she did say that the defense can cross Rodriguez about what he knew, when he knew it, kind of flesh out if he violated the sequestration order. Now, she said she'd give the defense a lot of leeway in this area, but I'm not sure that's saying much for coming from Auntie Bev. She said that she would also hear an argument if the defense felt like they needed to recall a witness if necessary. And then in relation to the ARCA experts, she ruled that she would allow limited rebuttal by the prosecution witnesses after the ARCA experts testify. And that's all that happened on day 17 of Karen Read's trial, which brings week 4 to an end. Thank you for being here and thank you for following along. We'll be back at it next week when we start day 18. And I do think that the prosecution will wrap up their case next week. At least according to Bev, they're on time. Here's your question of the day. What do you think about the fact that the forensic scientists never tried to identify who these 2 other markers were on this DNA? Let me know in the comments.